Explain like I'm 5 what has caused maternal mortality to rise so dramatically in the US since 2000. Most poorer countries have seen major drops in maternal mortality since 2000, while wealthy countries are generally seeing a flatlining or slight increasing trend. The rate has nearly doubled in the US. Acutely, i.e., the medical issue, not social causes. What is causing this to happen? What illnesses are pregnant women now getting more frequently? Why were we able to avoid these in a time 2000 where information sharing and technological capabilities were much worse? Don't we have a good grasp on the general process of pregnancy and childbirth and the usual issues that emerge? It seems as if the rise of technology in medicine, increasing volume of research on the matter, and the general treatment level of U.S. hospitals would decrease or at the very least keep the rate the same. How is it that the medical knowledge and treatment regimens have deteriorated to such an extent? Are the complications linked to obesity? I did a quick bit of research on this a few years ago and found little to no actual increase, but a standardization of how to measure and report it. Several states were tracking it differently. Some states included deaths of pregnant mothers. Some didn't. Some included deaths up to 6 months postpartum. Some were up to 24 months. When these metrics were normalized across several states, it looked as though it was an increase, but it was the change in how it was measured, i.e., the medical issue, not social causes. It's literally due to the social causes. You can't politicize people's bodily autonomy and create laws regulating what medical care that group can and cannot have access to due to their bodies containing an organ that gestates new life without severe repercussions. The sexism prevalent in medicine and the ongoing history of medical racism are direct causes of substandard medical care that leads to maternal and infant mortality. Our medicine is amazing and top-notch. There's no medical reason we should have increasing maternal mortality at all. The complete and utter absence of a healthcare system? Gunshot wounds are the leading cause of death for pregnant women in the USA. This is unbelievable. This isn't Afghanistan or Somalia. It's a supposed first world country. No paid parental leave means women have to use any tiny amount of sick or annual leave they have and then go back to work in a few weeks. This is fucking criminal. Let's not forget the women having babies they can't afford or just don't want to have, but do not have access to abortion, face with symbols on mouth. I don't think this needs a deep study. American health insurance is crap. Medical attitude towards women's need is terrible. And practicing OB population is decreasing. Research means nothing if results aren't put into practice or insurance won't cover newer methods. This thread is ripe with wrong, partially true, and tons of unsourced non-factual pundit information. Buyer beware. Poverty, age and health of mothers. There are many factors than just the medical care itself that can cause a death. Unchecked capitalism. I worked for a pretty large hospital group for 5 years. I can tell you they have so many rules in place and workflows for doctors and nurses that the pregnant women become nothing but a checklist over time. There is no room for personalization in this system. It's check off all these boxes, then making sure you document so we don't get sued. Something goes even slightly off the rails, it's C-section time. As an affluent Caucasian in otherwise great health, no one took my pregnancy concerns seriously, and I died as a result. No nurses are paid enough to care unless there's a bad test result, and everyone assumes when white women open their mouth about something unpleasant, they're just being Karens. The US is in decline. This causes the many factors which, in aggregate, lead to worse outcomes on average. It's a very good sign of a healthy, or unhealthy, society. It used to be one of those things the US was one in. Now we just go around claiming to be number one, but can't remember for what. When I started in 2007, it was rare for mothers to be on drugs. Now more than 1/3 are testing positive on tox screens. So much meth and opioids. Many people don't have even physical access. Look up distance to healthcare in Texas and other places like that. I don't know if this is fully accurate, but I read recently that the maternal mortality rates in the US are skewed because we take into account any death of a mother within their whole first year postpartum. So many of the reported deaths are due to PPA-PPD suicide, which would make a lot of sense given the mental illness stigmatization and non-universal healthcare here in the good old US of A. Our food chain is full of poison, pesticides, plastics, GMOs. The politicians let it happen to keep donations from the poisoners coming. I'm going to go ahead and say poverty, as expressed through obesity, poor nutrition, and lack of health care, which may or may be coming from the increased accumulation of wealth by the 0.01. But what do I know? The health system and obesity. The horrifying for a first world country murder rate and child mortality figures can't help either. Intervention are pushed on you when not needed. They should be saved for emergencies only. Also, the average American woman giving birth is not as fit anymore. Giving birth is a very physical event, and many are not prepared. In third world countries they are used to squatting, lifting, etc. Because the US is a shithole for everyone except its 0.001, including its own citizens. Shitty healthcare with majority of PPL unable to afford it. Shitty sex ed and access to contraceptives. No abortion rights, etc. There's a lot of Reddit nonsense in this thread. The real reason is because the US has much broader definitions of both maternal and infant mortality. Therefore it appears to be doing worse in those areas than other developed countries. Some of it is mental health, specifically postpartum depression. Severe cases cause suicides. The stats are also averaging out figures across the states, which are widely disparate due in part to lack of healthcare access in rural areas. So for instance, maternal mortality is way worse, like at developing country levels, in Missouri, but way better, like Scandinavian levels, in Massachusetts. Depends on where you live in the US. To some extent, people don't really think of the size of our population of our country relative to others. Welfare as we knew it went away in 1996, and the lives of very poor women became harder as a result. The decline in child well-being is also linked. Emo. America is a very rich nation superficially, but poverty runs deep if you scratch the surface. We take too many interventions that lead to other interventions. Isn't it interesting how most home births, midwife center births have lower transfer rates and they have no interventions? Pitocin leads to PPA-PPD. Epidurals slow labor down. Cause moms to tear more BC they can't feel what they are pushing. Less is more. Plus all of the elective C-sections. And why is maternal mortality so much worse for African American women? I'm not from the US, and haven't done any research on the numbers there, but I can say where I'm from the age of mothers is getting higher all the time. The medical progress is such that having babies at 35-40 is no longer a real issue. But it does raise the risk of complications. So this could certainly be a factor. A big factor in rural, even semi-rural cities. Hospitals and birth centers are closing. Even poorer places in big cities are becoming birthing deserts because birthing care gets harder to access.